What is going on, y'all? I'm Vinnie Potestivo. You are listening to I Have a Podcast, brought to you by the platform that helps independent creators discover and connect with opportunities that grow their careers, ihaveapodcast.com. In today's episode, we're featuring a fantastic show that's dedicated to transforming brands in the world of business. And in this episode, we're turning the spotlight on your brand amplified. I'll be joined by the incredible host, Anika Jackson, as we explore tips that help us elevate our brand's presence. Trust me, it's a masterclass in strategic branding that's worth every moment of your time. So grab a pen and paper because you're going to want to jot down these actionable insights. We're discussing key strategies to stand out in a competitive landscape, ways to foster a meaningful connection with your audience, and we're sharing techniques on how to amplify your brand's message across all platforms. Additionally, we'll shed some light on the pivotal role podcasting has to play in the world of branding, a medium that's reshaping how brands connect with their audiences. Now, here's the fun part. I'm going to ask you to join in on the conversation by using hashtag I Have a Podcast on any social platform, especially LinkedIn. And if you happen to be on LinkedIn and would like to join our I Have a Podcast community, you can find us at vpe.tv/I Have a Podcast. All right, enough of my talking. Let's jump straight into this enriched episode of I Have a Podcast, where we feature the show Your Brand Amplified, hosted by Anika Jackson. And together, let's you and I unlock the strategies that supercharge your brand's influence and set you on a path to branding success.
Welcome to Your Brand Amplified, the podcast where we interview marketers, publicists, and brands to learn their stories, what makes them tick, and tips and tricks that make a difference. Welcome to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. I'm your host, Anika Jackson, and today I am here with Emmy Award-winning media advisor, creative economist, and host, and editor-in-chief, I should say, of I Have a Podcast, Vinnie Potestivo. Vinny, thank you so much. I'm so glad we finally got you on.
Thank you for having me, by the way. I'm excited to be here. Let's look, I'm gonna get put to work. I came with ready to go. My sleeves are rolled up.
Yeah, you work hard though. I mean, how many episodes of your podcast do you put out?
I think only 27 of mine, but hundreds of everyone else's. That's for sure. Not just as a guest, but in helping people create and make, being like being this small in the large scale impact that people's podcasts and content are having it's like the highlight of my career. Getting to help real people make real content, make a real impact with what we're doing on podcasting is it's a different type of energy that I get than what I did in the 90s and early 2000s with reality TV and MTV. And we'll get to that, I'm sure.
No, yeah. Well, actually, let's start there. Let's get into what you did and how you got to be the person you are and putting the energy into the world that you are now.
Oh, cool. Well, I can't start at MTV. That's like where it gets fun. If you want the real answer, we like most creatives, I would say that have identified their superpowers. Most of those superpowers come in the form of coping mechanisms for like what we've been through. So, I'm a very empathetic creative. I really have learned to be responsive to what people say and do. And I'm aware that people sometimes say something and then do something that contradicts what they said. But that's humanity.
Right.
There's an empath to me that feels out when someone is going to say something and do it versus when they're just trying to say it for the attention of TV. And that empath part, I think that comes from as a kid, not getting signals from my parents because of drugs and alcohol and things like that were involved, or not understanding signals from other adults made me start looking in weird places for some, like we've all been, maybe, hopefully not, but a lot of us can relate to being in a relationship where maybe they don't love us. If they don't give me dinner, that's the sign. If the spotlight turns green, then I'm meant to break up. We start looking for these external signals that help us. And sometimes they're just silly. The green light, I think we've all said it, by the way. If this turns green, it's going to be my lucky day. How about if you end the sentence, it's going to be your lucky day. So set yourself up for success, right? And some of it was mind shift and mentality. I grew up in a family that didn't know anyone in the entertainment industry. I was told that I wouldn't know. And I was told the only way I'm going to break into TV, my mom told me this, is if literally someone finds me on the corner. That was the support that I got. Yeah, but I didn't know that was bad. I thought that was advice. You know what I did? My October 1998, I was looking through something called Backstage, which is where people who are non-union can find non-union opportunities. Still to this day, podcasts. If you're looking to be in a commercial, a movie that's you're not quite, at the caliber of acting and professional yet, Backstage is a great resource. It's where I started my career. And it's where, it's where I continue to find, people when I was in casting. But just the decisions that we make, we don't have to wait around to get discovered anymore. There isn't someone like me tapping me on the shoulder on a street corner saying, now is your time. As podcasters, as creators, we're making decisions on where, when, how we get discovered. We have a say in that. Like, I want to be discovered in podcasting. I want these stories to be associated with me. I want this energy to be associated with me. I can't get a lot of that out of Google or post or social media interaction, but I can in podcasting. So I'm fully leaned in because I feel like this is the best way for my message to be received, not even just sent, but received. And the power we have now as independent creators, like in television, I got to work with so many creators back in the late 90s and early 2000s. So that's where I learned to be. I turned my empath skills into a skill set that I could use, that I could translate, to be productive. I think there's a part of me that's a people pleaser, out of that era of life also, which allowed me to
say empath, people pleaser. Yeah.
All those things that
same.
You cringe when you know that you fall into that category, but I would be nowhere if I didn't put everyone that I work with before me. If I didn't have their goals, I would have never even dreamed of reaching as high as Sharon Osbourne or Ashton Kutcher or Mandy Moore or Jessica Simpson or Ashley Simpson or any of the talent that I got to work with at MTV. And I went to school knowing that I was going to have a hard time getting into the industry. I went to Wagner College knowing that, because of what I was told, that the only way I'd get in is if literally I was discovered on a street corner. It wasn't my skills. It wasn't my talent that was going to get me in, but it was literally something that I had almost, quote unquote, no control over. And I dissected this piece of information because I realized I have control over where I stand.
Right.
So if I actually go to this corner, so to say, and I get discovered, then that's the way it's supposed to be. I saw in Backstage a casting director from MTV. He said, we're meeting on 45th and Broadway. Show up at 8 a.m. We're doing a scene for Spankin' New Music Week. I had no clue what that even meant. I was a senior at Wagner College. I turned to a couple of my choir buddies and I was like, we don't have choir today. We have to, let's go into the city and see what MTV got in store for us. Like, it's a ferry ride away and a quick train. Who knows? And that day I found myself on a street corner waiting for a casting director to tap me on the shoulder. I literally did what someone told me to do, which is the weirdest thing about it. But I waited. I could have waited on any street corner. Right. I knew when a casting director was going to be on that street. I went knowing that this is what I was told it would take. And I think because I had that mindset, I came in and as I said earlier, like my gut reaction, which is weird for most people seeking to get cast. Usually you don't bring lots of people because the more people you bring, the more likely other people are going to, you know what I mean? Even if it's just body count, I don't care. And it wasn't about me. It was about us. And regardless of if it's my face or your face, we did it. And this is going to be awesome. And I can't wait to be part of this story. And long story short, it was a scene with Whitney Houston. And I was picked in the crowd to ask her a question. The producers came over. Ananda Lewis, the VJ, helped me. She gave me my first media training. I owe her like my life. She opened that door to me completely. I had to ask Whitney, what was it like recording with Mariah Carey, the Prince of Egypt soundtrack? Like, you just finished recording with another major recording artist. What was it like? And I practiced and I got to do it to the camera and in front of the audience. You know, they really rehearse you and get you comfortable. being in front of the camera. And then Whitney came out, and this is my big moment. And then Whitney comes out, and I see the producers pull her aside with the, they got the headphones on. And, yeah, we got her here. I'm so excited. This is going to live TV at Times Square. She's the stage manager, says, that's the guy. He's going to ask you what it was like recording with another, major recording artist for the Prince of Egypt soundtrack. And I saw her go, I'm not answering that question.
Oh, no.
No. I'm Whitney. No. We're not talking about other artists.
Oh my gosh.
During this drop. Like, no. I just remember thinking, my dreams, like this is what I was supposed to do. And my reaction was, okay, so that didn't work out, but this was so much fun. And if you need anyone else, let me know. I know dancers and actors and models and young talent in New York that are actively looking for opportunities like this to build their reel, just to be in front of a camera. And the producer said, well, actually, we have a very Busta Christmas special shooting tomorrow with Busta Rhymes. And he's going to basically read Christmas, nursery rhymes, but Busta version. And I was like, that's right up my alley. The opportunity I didn't know I wanted. And then that turned into helping cast Whitney Houston's It's Not Right, But It's Okay. And all the time I'm struggling with being a casting director. I went back to school. I was really upset that as a casting director, like I kind of felt like a fraud. Like I kind of stepped into something that I didn't quite deserve yet because I didn't feel like I worked all the horrible things. I didn't work hard enough. It just came to me like as if I didn't just work my entire life to get to this moment. It fell on my lap. I feel bad. I shouldn't have it. It's not for me. I'm not bleeding, so this can't possibly be virtuous if if there's no blood drawn, right? And I went home to school and I was so mad, and I went to backstage.com. It was just Backstage back then. I'm pretending like this was 2020.
Pre.com.
Yeah, it was very. They might even been on a tree back then. No, but it was a weekly newspaper, and I went to Backstage and I took out an ad from school. I said, I'm a casting director. If you're looking to be cast in future projects, send me your resume and headshot. 1 Campus Road, student box 577. Like I didn't lie. Casting, schmasting, fancy casting company. I didn't even know that I should or could have done that, to be honest. I was so excited to just be myself. Also, I got into casting in the late 90s. What that means to me is that there was a part in the early 90s and mid 90s where I lied about myself because my sexuality wasn't as accepted corporately, financially, legally, spiritually, socially, on any level as it is now. And I made some decisions to lie about the representation of my sexuality in my life. I wasn't going to lie about what I do with my life. Like I already in the 90s had to make a decision, career or family. Like I never in a million years thought as a 20-year-old, this is only just 15 years ago. I never thought that the rights that we now have in place as of the recording of this podcast, that I would be honest about that would be there. And I wanted to live in my truth. So I took out this ad. I got 500 to 700 submissions back. I ended up doing what I thought was normal. I went to Microsoft Excel and I created a spreadsheet because I had to do something, right? I couldn't just look at this. I couldn't just look at these images. I had to do something with it. And it was the act of creating that database that opened up my entire career. When Fox News, I worked on a show called Hannity and Combs, which was back then Fox News was brand new. And it was a show truly about both sides. There's only 2 sides of the aisle back then, but they acknowledged both and they were pretty much on equal footing. Hannity and Combs were both equally revered men who had a lot of credibility on that network, as opposed to now where maybe one might not have the standing because of certain political beliefs. And that helped me cast Choose or Lose in 2000 for MTV to help the younger demographic understand the political process. And I did a good job on that, I think. And then they had me work on those crazy MTV Wanna Be a VJ. Remember all those like weird giant things that my little tiny can do Excel and Microsoft Access database were the backbone to that. And when the head of the network said, where's that guy with the hair? We got to go back in the tape and look for it. Boop, 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 boop. Here I am, like got my little fingers, like a little operator ready to pull it up. And I had some technical skills. I could also wire 2 VCRs together to edit And that was a weird skill set to have that helped me at MTV. They were still at MTV when I got there working on beta. VHS has such a poor quality. When I got there, I showed them how to wire two VCRs together so we could edit in our offices instead of having to go to the edit bay.
Oh my gosh.
It's weird now that we can do it on our phones. That's like blows my mind. But for 10 years, I was at MTV doing that. And then 2 years into my career in 2000s, reality TV boomed. My boss created the talent development department. His name is Rod Asa, my mentor, my best friend, the most inspiring man in the entire world. And I actually hate talking about him because I'm so territorial about like I am. It's like mine. But he's also Sharon Osbourne's and Ashton Kutcher's. And like he saw structure at a network. He said 30 minutes we need for storytelling. Y'all are doing 3-minute storytelling, 4-minute storytelling, and your living artists already tell the stories. You're giving them music. They're creating music videos. Yeah. They're producing the content. So like, let's just ramp it up and give them 30 minutes instead of 3 minutes. And the Osbournes, Sharon was really persistent and saw something that we didn't see. And we didn't, who knew, even though the real world was at the Truman Show in there were like these hints of things out there, but I'm surprised Truman Show didn't come up when we were developing Osbournes. But ultimately it was let's figure out what the real world meets Osbournes looks like.
Right.
And then when Ashton came in to pitch, the show in a version of punk that isn't what it is now and what it became, Ashton's goal wasn't to sell a show. Ashton's goal was to sell the show that launches his production company, that reestablishes him in the media industry as a leader and not just a quote unquote pretty boy or actor for hire or talent for hire, and wanted to show that he was capable of not just understanding the flow of culture, but predicting it and leaning into it and creating for it and impacting it. And I got to work with all of those storytellers. Yeah. Beyonce, and I got to cast her. I didn't cast her, but I was the casting PA. It's so weird to think that Beyonce had to audition for a film, Carmen, a hip opera. Robert Townsend directed it, and it was Robert, Beyonce, and me in the room. Wow. When you learn to work with, and you're in the room and you're exposed to greatness on that level, and you see follow through. I didn't just see Beyonce in her audition. I saw her land the role, get the role, not get a single award for that role, and then use that experience to create Sasha Fierce. I was part of her character development of the performing version. That's so cool.
Wow,
I'm a
really cool.
tiny little alchemy in there somewhere. And then ultimately that experience, well, I don't want to say it helped her become more of a solo artist because I don't want to take any fault or blame for Destiny's Child, but she had her own career in film afterwards because of that, experience. And I take that so seriously when you're working with people who follow through, who know better than to self-sabotage, whose goals are far greater than their own reach could ever be, that they need a global audience to help them accomplish what the goal, that's like, I'm in love. It's like, you just made me fall in love. I mean, someone who's got that level, that goal, that ability to create a singular audience around the topic, and then multiple topics, multiple audiences. So there's a community that's like that used to only happen in TV, and it happens now outside of TV. And I'm trying my best to get it to happen in podcasting, and more importantly for us as podcasters to be connected with each other, so that all of these solo little tiny, RSS feeds, podcast feeds, simple casts, narrow cast, and then in television we have broadcast. So in this world of podcasting where it can feel so small, when we do work together, what we can accomplish is ridiculous.
It really is. And that's been one of my favorite things, and why I continue to lean into it so much.
Yeah.
So,
I love that.
So you started out wanting to be in front of the camera, right? And then
interesting you picked up on that, but yes, perhaps.
Well,
well, it's what I knew.
I'm an actor. I'm in choir. I want to, be a performer. And then you quickly found, and I think this is the case with a lot of people who are creatives. They want to be in front of the camera, but then they find that their true talent might lie behind it.
Oh, yeah.
at least for a period of time. And then obviously with podcasting and everything else that you're doing now and have been doing, you are getting to expend that creative energy in a different way and be the face as well.
Well,
yeah.
For me, I think because of my sexuality and the things that the version of the story that I told. So there's something that happened, by the way, in October 1998 that made me go to MTV, that made me put out a bulletin to 700 people. And I went to a class, and in this class, I was taught that innately, and by no fault of our own, but innately, we're pretty bad storytellers. We repeat what we're told, and most of us weren't even connected to the internet at that point yet. Right. So we were literally my grandma's story of me, my dad's, all the worst versions, that I had a story of me that was defined by bullying, that was defined by all the obstacles that I had overcome, because at that point in my life, that was, I thought, the sum total of me.
Wow.
And it was someone who said, think, reposition and look into the future. And I had a really hard time with that. I didn't like I didn't like that just change your mind, and then all of a sudden you're just like a whole different person. Well, what I wish someone would have told me, which I learned the hard way, but quickly, by the time I got home, I learned this, was if you change your mind, then follow through on that mindset. So it's not just about saying, I'm a casting director, I can cast you in something. It was, I'm a casting director. And I thought to myself, well, what would a casting director do? I guess put out a call for people to send in headshots, because I've seen that happen lots of times. So I guess I'll do that, because that's what people do. And to be honest, the rest for me happened because of those very specific, unique people. My first 500 to 700, Kimber. I know there's a couple of people who came in who I'm still connected to, like anything I can do to get them a gig, anything I can do to help them own more podcasts and own more space. And they inspired me to do what I did. I didn't know what I just know I needed to be surrounded by talent. You know why? Because my mom would tell me when I was a kid that you're only the sum of the 5 people. You stop hanging out with those 5. You're going to get in trouble all the time. The 5 people, am I fine? If that works on the low side of the totem pole, let's see if it works on the top side. And it really has. And that's where being a people pleaser and putting people first really helped me in my career. I wouldn't take any part of that back. I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't feel like I did. I don't think I gave anything that I don't, there's no regret, literally. And in 10 years of media, for me to and I'm a very emotional person, for me to say I have no regrets, knowing what happened to people like Britney Spears, knowing what happened to artists like Khalees, knowing what happened to, I can go on and on and on about artists and the way that people treated each other and the way women were treated. I worked very closely with Mandy Moore, at that point, the youngest of all those pop stars. Then 15 she was when she started MTV, and I was lucky. Again, I was lucky because my brother and sister are born in 84, 85. They're millennials. So all through childhood, all through my trauma, I became a people pleaser because I have the best siblings in the entire world. And anything they wanted, I can make happen. And I didn't want anything, because you learn to not want something when you get disappointed. So you learn to, I won't get disappointed if I don't want anything. Like, what a weird... I'll work with really, do you know what I did? So this is so funny. So this is my journey in 20s. Do you know what I did in my 30s? The opposite. It's so weird. Everything I just learned and experienced, I was so lucky to not have to learn the hard way. And also I was empowered. I got to MTV and people listened to me. That's why I stayed. Because I was like, yo, y'all, like, I come up with an idea and then we do it. And
you're like, okay, this is awesome.
Yeah, And I learned leadership in college. I didn't come into school feeling like a leader. And I learned student leadership, and I ended up being class president, choir president, computer club president. I spent hours in the computer club because I'm a bit of I'm an external sort of introvert, as they say, or whatever that word is, but helping people with their term papers and their decks and their assignments. You'd think I was crazy that I loved it. I turned PowerPoint into how to create a reality TV show deck. I turned all my Microsoft. I learned the power of a font, how a font can change the tone of a pitch.
Yeah.
You'll never see Comic Sans on any of my shit. It's like that just has like common denominator. And I don't want that. I need something a little, elevated, a little sans serif perhaps. And, Comic Sans is, but I learned the power of that creatively and how to get a point across. Maybe to set the point and then in TV, you sort of say what happens. You give some information, a tape, and you leave, and it's in that office. So I just need to make sure what's on that paper is going to continue the energy and the tone and the goal that I have in mind. And that's why I've always been focused on working with talent and helping them get discovered, whether they're celebrities or entrepreneurs, B2B, B2C. There's a real need for discoverability, and I kind of geek out over some of this discoverability stuff because I really kind of put the economy glasses on this one. So like I'm really excited about what I'm seeing here.
Awesome. Well, I would love to dig into that some more. Let's talk about discoverability and what you're doing now. So you were at MTV, you're an executive, you worked with amazing people, amazing shows, things that we all grew up with. I'm a little bit older than you, so I think maybe my younger siblings grew up with, and I observed some of it.
You were like Kennedy. You had some cool VJs on MTV.
Yeah,
Downtown Julie Brown.
Yeah, I worked with Dave Kendall. For a while.
Awesome.
At a magazine in LA when I was first starting out in my career. Yeah, we both worked in a magazine called Ray Gun. So.
Oh yeah, that's fun.
VJJs, yeah.
Yeah, after his one, he did 120 minutes, I think, exactly. Right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's cool. That's so fun. I love that. I love that these people at MTV then, Adam Curry, one of the very first VJs ever, is the man who's credited with creating this idea that there should be an audio file hosted someplace and something called a really simple syndication link, RSS, that will ping it. He literally created the format for podcasting. And he's the same person who tried to tell MTV to buy MTV.com. MTV was like, no, we're not .com. So he bought it. And then in the early 90s, he sold it back to them.
I love it.
He didn't try to make too much money on it, but he was like, I told you so, guys. Yeah. I saw MTV get launched in the 80s. I was very young. I saw MTV get launched. I didn't really start watching it until the mid 90s when we had it, to be honest.
Right.
And even then, I really wanted to be a Broadway producer, so I didn't quite get a lot of the current musical. Wasn't what I was really diving into. But in the mid 90s, something magical happened at MTV. That's where Yo MTV Raps came into play. It's where they stopped identifying as a sort of male skewing rock network and really opened up the doors to artists that specifically didn't look like Michael Jackson. Like Michael was banned on that network until they couldn't play Michael Jackson videos until 8 p.m. I remember, on certain days, and then 10 p.m. on certain weekdays, based on FCC and regulations back then. I remember MTV really making leaps and bounds for people who were being just flat out discriminated and beyond marginalized. And I got to MTV at a point in time where the executives were females, and there was, not to say a decent amount or the right amount of representation, but there was enough representation there that I didn't do anything at that network from the day I started without being mindful of inclusivity. And that was something that I knew was important because I loved the outcome. Why is it so important to look for new people? Because I want to find new things. And when I find something new, people notice it. If it's another version of something that's already out there, I found that it wasn't making that impact. I didn't set out to hire, and I wish I did, but I didn't set out to hire the first Korean American news correspondent on MTV. But when I met Soojin Park, anything I could do to get her that job, I did, and she landed it, and I got to be such a tiny, again, like I said with Whitney, a tiny small part of the alchemy of what happened, but the community that saw her. It's like waving it's a flag or a hand. It's like a secret that when you see yourself, Yeah. It's funny. You talk about people talk about seeing themselves in media. As a kid, I saw myself on two shows. The Muppet Show, I identified as Scooter.
Oh.
Very clear. So I knew I wasn't a Kermit or a Fozzie. I was the Scooter guy, the stage manager. And on Howard Stern, I was Robin.
Wow.
I was like, sure, smart, intelligent, not the star, here to support the star, doesn't have any of the same opinions as him, but is able to understand and support the larger. And I could subscribe to that. Gelman on Regis and Kathy, Regis and Kelly back in the day, he was too much of a TV producer. Like that was like, I don't want to be so nuts and bolts about it. I wanted to get my hands dirty. And what Robin did on Howard Stern was like literally like what I thought like I would love to do. I think that's what I'm doing now. I didn't go on camera. I did some shows on camera. Sometimes I would get in trouble and the cameras are around. So I mean, like, you do a little diary episode here or there. What's so bad with being in Manny Moore Diary? Season 1, episode 2 of Osbourne's. I mean, but who's counting? Like, you learn like weird. I used to get. I know he doesn't listen, so I'll say this story. But Rod, I love you. Rod called me up one day, my boss at MTV. He goes, Vinny, what did we say about being on camera? And this was like MTV Beach House, Key West, by the way. Gosh,
yeah.
And I was like, Rod, you told me not to be on camera. He's like, are you on camera? I'm like, I'm not on camera right now, Rod. He goes, well, I'm watching MTV right now, and you're dancing on a box, and it says Vinny, Staten Island, 21. And I was like, well, that was like a few weeks ago, and they had no one in the audience. He's like, Vinny, you don't need to be dancing on here. Like, that's not a great, do you understand? It's not a great look for us. And I was like, but Rod, we're in it. This was me. We're in it. I don't want to be not in it. I don't want to be here if I can't, like, it's bad. I shouldn't have said that, by the way. I'm not recommending people do. Don't be me, by the way. Learn what not to do by doing what I've done. It doesn't work for everybody, but I got my way. And he got his way too, ultimately, as well. So. and now here I am, where I can show up on podcasting, and there's some trust that I was missing in TV that I have in podcasting. I show up, I'm in your space. If this is your podcast, I mean, are you kidding me? I show up with a level of trust. I'm already in. So like, I couldn't be happier being here. You put me on Fox News or CNN or MTV News or any broadcast channel where I don't have final say. Not to say that I have final say even in how you edit this, but I trust you as a person. We've made a contact.
Right, exactly.
And if if it's not fun to make, it ain't going to be fun to watch.
Exactly.
That's the discoverability part, right? All right. So here's what I'm finding. So there's exposure. Mm-hmm. Exposure is the first time maybe we're seeing you, or the second or we're just seeing you. So exposure. So you go on TV, you go on a podcast, you get noticed. There's exposure. If there's an action, and if that action is sharing, then that leads to discovery, right? Mm-hmm. So exposure plus, or maybe exposure times action, meaning sharing, equals discovery. If there's exposure without sharing, and you're not sharing comments or experiences or anything that I've put into this content, then it's entertainment or education. And I'm very happy. I've created both. So I couldn't be happier to tell you that the trick to creating entertainment and the trick to creating education is removing the action piece so people can learn. But at the end of learning something, we have homework, we have schoolwork, we have collaboration opportunities. This is where we start to put it into action. And that's where the action matters most. And if that action is sharing, if after you've been exposed to me and I've done something that allows you to share my content, mm-hmm. share a simple quote that I said, share my merch, share a contact that I give you. Networking is the most valuable share I can think of. Share the experience. I think of my mom. My mom thinks she like invented not even discovered, but like invented Michael Bublé. Michael famously did like a Christmas show, and that he used that Christmas special to launch his entire global career. And after everyone fell in love with this young boy crooning Christmas tunes that the entire family knew already,
right?
My mom went out and bought 10 albums, and they were all in our stockings. And the thing that Michael did, and I don't know Michael, by the way, Michael Bublé. So I just say, let's just call him Michael.
Fun name to say.
Yeah, it's just for fun. So the thing Michael did right with my mom, Michael, you better watch yourself on this one, is he put those CDs in a place where my mom shopped. So she was able to find them easily at Walmart at a price point that she found valuable enough to purchase 10 of them to come and share that with us. And by being the person who shares a discovery, what you're giving them the ability to do, like there's ego at play. Now they're the discoverer, they're the connector, they are the person of value. They are the person who now is the closest to you saying like, this is an album you're going to love. Would you rather hear that from my mom or would you rather hear that from the ABC? I'm pretty sure it was ABC Christmas special, that happened there. My mom got the message from the TV show. She heard it loud and clear. We got the message from my mom. Mm-hmm. Michael gave my mom an experience in a TV show that connected to an album, a tangible piece of product that he could then, give to her to share. And those are some of the things that we do as creators, as podcasters, as business owners, as entrepreneurs. These are some of the things that we do that, in my opinion, trip us up a little bit and make us a little bit more difficult to be discovered. Exposure almost isn't our problem, but what happens next after that exposure, we have a lot of control over.
Yeah. So what are some opportunities for exposure that podcasters don't take advantage of?
Awards, first and foremost. And I think this probably answer can go through every single industry, every industry vertical there is. Mm-hmm. If you're not working, I guess it comes in the form of a bachelor, right? They have awards for Bachelor of the Year. And so we find ways to lift people 30 under 30, 40 under 40. If those are some national level awards, localized awards might be best local podcast in our area. It can be fractured by perhaps best sales in my department, right? So awards on all levels are not only just allowing people to, sort of celebrate wins, but they're just great goals, great tentpole goals to incentivize people to know where to grab and to grow. And awards are one of those things that after you win the award, there's lots of, there could be a press release. There could be a dinner for the group, for your team. There could be a thank you gift. There could be a fun experience, a moment, something that binds us together. The person who wins the award usually gets a thank you speech maybe, and gets to acknowledge all the other people that helped that award. So it's not a solo win. It's a huge group win. And even Academy Award winning Best Actor, that person who wins that one award, they've got the most people to thank.
Oh yeah.
Right? You hear the list. So these are not individual awards. And I think there's some shame in people wanting awards because of the individuality of winning. And I like to separate that. Also, you have to pay for award nominations for a good amount of them, to be honest. No one taps Beyonce on her shoulder and says, "Oh, Beyonce, great album. Here are your 8 Grammy nominations. We hope you're happy this year."
Right.
She has to pay for every producer attached to every track, attached to every submission. In the same way I have to do it for the Emmys, and the same way theater has to do it for the Tonys. And so I have a list of about 100 awards worthy of winning, in my opinion, on my website. If anyone's looking for awards, whether you have a newsletter, a website, you're in marketing, you use a unique stack of technology to achieve a certain goal. Whether you make podcast art, produce podcasts. By the way, maybe you don't even have a podcast, but you're a podcast guest. And this, by the way, my strategy, right? I'm having so much fun being a podcast guest, but I am really growing my audience as a podcast guest. And there's no cheaper way for me to get high quality content. And I say this with all due respect. There's no cheaper way for me to have high quality content to support my message.
Nice.
Show up on your podcast. Because to be honest, you edit this and you make us look great. And that's where our trust comes from. And I show up with Beyonce stories that I want you to have. I'm mindful. I'm not trying to go in the top 100s and drop stories of celebrities. And I don't think that that's a fun way to build a brand. I think it's a fun way to build a community.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to talk about my MTV-ness back in the day, because that's my little flag in Times Square being like, Anyone watch that show? I can relate. You might not know, but I can relate. I can relate to that.
Yeah, but it really brought you to where you are today. So
yeah. And with them too. So that's the best part. When it was time to launch my podcast, terrified. And I thought, well, just get Mandy Moore and Jamie Lynn Sigler and Danielle Fishel and the people that I've loved working with, get them to be the guests, because then I just have to be myself. I don't get sweaty palms. I get sweaty palms. I get this weird performative thing. Zoom has helped me a lot. This idea of talking to each other behind a camera and it being sort of normal and it is what it is. That's nice. That didn't happen 5 years, even 2 years ago. That didn't happen.
It's true.
I think that was the biggest technology change that allowed me to create the space to step back into making my own content, and also at MTV or even in casting, Bravo, A&E, all the housewife shows I've done. I do this for a living: chat, record, and then edit my voice out. I was like, cut it out. I edit my voice out of a final, final product to the network. So like the network would get this, but it would just be you saying great things. And I put, visuals and photos and show like what the reel looks like. I was trained to take my voice out. So this for me, it's a pleasure and an honor to get to show up and to get to show up on something that you own. I bring that up because it's like so important. It's so important to be collaborating in the indie side of podcasting right now, and the indie side of content right now, with people who have ownership over their products, intellectual property. It's the future. When Red Bull came out 15 years ago, looking to create content, everyone thought they were crazy because they wouldn't collaborate. They had to own everything all out. Now look at where they are in terms of the content, branded content. I mean, they're leading it. They're creating sports. Heck, I mean, like that's community stuff. You know what I mean? They're past building audiences. They're now in the community game. And like, that's where we as independent podcasters, that's where we can stand out. Also, I like pointing out that IMDb.com, the Internet Movie Database, where like we go to find our movies and it tells you actors and directors, that podcasts are a form of intellectual property that are acceptable now on IMDb. So as a podcaster, I have the right to get executive producer credit, host credit. I can attach all of my guests to my episodes. So if you are a Mandy Moore fan, you can go to This Is Us, go to her page, and scroll down to podcasts, and then I'm using IMDb as a discovery method. And
I
it's
actually think
also
I heard that on one of your podcast episodes.
I love it. It's free, by the way.
And I need to write this down because I am not using that right now.
Oh yes. So by the way, I have a step-by-step guide for it. It's in my Creator Hub, which is always free. So I'm never going to charge anyone to be in my Creator Hub. It's free education. I actually have software as a service brands that are working with me that they sort of pay me to create masterclasses, and I can offset membership fee to walk you through that. It's you don't even need an IMDb Pro account to get it, and the impact is ridiculous. What it does for your SEO, what it tells Google, what Google doesn't know about you. It doesn't connect you and your skills to your podcast and your production company and your awards that you're winning and the guests that have participated in it, and also your tagline and an unlimited amount of, if you're creating social media content to support your podcast and you're looking for another place to hang it up, I got another one for you. IMDb.com. It's vertical and horizontal photo. And then I think we're in October now, so maybe by the time this airs, also I want to be pushing people over to Pinterest TV, which has officially aired and debuts November 8th. The lineup is sick, and if anyone has been looking for their moment to jump into the next wave of what's happening, Pinterest has two huge opportunities that I find gigantic. One is called Shuffles. Right now it's invite only. If you're listening to this, send me a DM and I will send you my invite code. Shuffles allows you to basically take pins and create collages. So you're multi-sourcing pins to create a unique asset that can then be created as a video for social media. And it's pretty cool what you're able to do there. And then, as I said, Pinterest TV is shoppable long form, clickable, evergreen vertical content on Pinterest, which is already a gigantic database and search engine. I think we all understand the power that has there.
Wow.
So Pinterest, right? Pinterest adding videos and the ability to crowdsource pins and create collages. Also, I just want to point out by this time, then YouTube is also launching what they're calling handles. So we've always had YouTube accounts, and like you can go to see youtube.com/c/DPETV is like my business, is my brand channel. But if you wanted to go to my personal account, you'd have to go to youtube.com/user/whatever it is. So they're coming out with handles. So it'll be at Vinnie youtube.com/@Vinnie Potestivo, similar to TikTok. The URLs will look because on as great as YouTube is for searchability and discoverability, finding people, tagging people, and connecting people isn't quite what that platform has done. To me, they're saying something about the power of the creator. To me, when they give us a name and not a number, it's usually a pretty good sign. So that's something that's kind of a twinkle that I see that I'm like, oh, I hope that pans out the way it could.
Yeah, those are some great tips. Now, a lot of your podcast episodes are with people who have a little more notoriety, brand equity, credibility, because they have been in the public eye. But you also said that you're really passionate about helping entrepreneurs, the undiscovered, through some of the tools and resources that you have available on your website. What are some of the other ways that you like to help people become discovered?
Oh, that's so fun. By the way, but the celebrities I work with, well, they're just like us.
Yeah.
And maybe 20 years ago, they were more like us than they are today. And there's no one I really have worked with on the level of celebrity where I came in where they were already a chart topping name globally. I'm brought in from the ground up, often speaking. I'm not a manager or a coach, and I have a unique skill set that complements those types of people. For an artist or a person or an entrepreneur looking to create opportunities, and I can bring in structure. That's what I get most excited about. Helping non-creative companies function creatively is my specialty. Creative SOPs. Helping a skincare company have a stronger art department so they can better communicate the benefits of their product, or coming into an accounting firm or a legal firm and looking at a closet and saying, you see a spare closet, I see a podcast booth. So let's talk about, and then for that purpose, even then, because I have a couple of legal podcasts that I help, and it started with like, oh, we get asked to be on guests, so we're always saying yes, and it takes up so much of our time because we do 2 or 3 a week, and that takes 5 hours. And I'm like, well, let's stop. They're like, no, we have to podcast guests to grow. I'm like, yeah, but you don't have to do it on everyone else's schedule.
Right.
Lock in 3 hours on a Wednesday and ask kindly if those 3 podcasts can see if you can schedule them in on that Wednesday. This way, your lighting only has to be right. Your headspace can be in the right, place where everything is, too much happens all throughout the week. It's really hard. In podcasting, you need to be hyper present. If you really want there to be a connection, if what we're doing is meant to represent who we are, not live, then like I really have to show up and just give you my all, as I fully have. I do.
Yeah, I think that is one of the struggles is figuring out how to best use podcasting, how to make sure that it fits in your schedule. I know, but if people say, hey, I can't do the podcast in your normal hours, I will work with them to figure out when, especially if there's somebody I'm like, oh, we haven't talked about that yet. We need to dig into that. This person, has a lot of credibility and I really want them to be on my podcast. We will make exceptions. We'll move things around.
I don't say that to try. I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just trying to actually for it to be scalable, enjoyable. And for me to be able to show up in the best way I know how, and having created that system, it makes me understand why artists like Jennifer Lopez carry a white candle everywhere they go. Like when you just really love the environment. And that's what I was getting at earlier with podcasting is when you step in to record and you have this inherent innate sense of trust, the level that you're able to dig into deeply quicker and stay there is far more rewarding, so to speak, than if it took 30, 45 minutes to finally get to the point or get to the depth that you wanted to get into. And time management, it's tricky. I call it a creative obstacle because I think it's creative.
I love that.
How do I get a 60-minute podcast into 15 minutes of time? Trust me, I know. I can ask my questions in 5 minutes, and then you can spend 30 minutes just giving me answers, and I can cut together. So I didn't even think about that, but like therein lies a way to do it. But if time is a culprit, is a bandit here, and for most of us it is, podcast guesting. Podcast guest, show up on someone else's podcast, and then do this. Hey, I had a blast on your podcast, and after this airs on your podcast, if it would help you, if you were to send me this audio file and I put it on my podcast, I feel like the people who don't want to go switching podcasts to go see what I'm going to say on someone else's podcast, at least they'll get to hear what I need to say and meet you because I'm putting you in front of them the way they already know how, instead of trying, which is a weird thing about podcast guesting, but trying to get people to go searching for all the other people's podcasts that they have no clue who they are. It's like come to this holiday party at my friend's house. It's like, I don't want to.
Yeah.
Your friends, like, that's my strategy a little. It's a little different than what's out there. And because I work with people you bring up, like the people I've worked with are people whose careers have impacted mine for sure. And maybe I played a small role in theirs. Instead of sitting down with them once for 45 minutes, what I'm doing is sitting down with them, recording 4 to 5 15-minute tracks. And then for the month, for 4 to 5 consecutive weeks, I'll collaborate with the same person. And what that hopefully allows me to do is it doesn't force you to feel like you have to promote this image for your feed or this image in your story and this one opportunity to co-post something on Twitter or to co-post something on Instagram the way we can do now. I'm giving you 5 weeks to work with me.
Right.
Things are going to happen. Holidays, politics, weather, things that we don't have control over, that just because I only gave you one 45-minute interview on my weekly podcast and because it snowed that day and everyone only, you know what I mean? And it goes nowhere. So hopefully this is my way of expanding time.
Yeah.
I don't feel so rushed with the time.
I like that. And I know some of the other things that I'm starting to incorporate into my strategy are we're using the video and we're posting the episodes on YouTube.
Yeah.
And then I've heard now Spotify is allowing video podcasts.
It's
and there's some
amazing.
other platforms that are going to start doing that. So we're going to start, I think, seeing more of that. So people can listen to it. They can also watch it and listen to it. And then I'm also starting to put the transcripts of the episodes, which I know is something that you also do.
Yeah.
And then my team creates a static graphic, an audio graphic. So there's so many ways and so many touch points that we have. And as creators, if somebody asks me, hey, can I share on my podcast or can you send me the audio file and I'm going to break it up and promote it in different ways? I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to give because this is an exchange. This is an energy exchange. And while I like my guests to do most of the talking, because then that adds the value to my audience instead of them just hearing me talk. It's like I also teach college, which you're going to come talk.
Well, they get you. Yeah, they hear you speak. This is another way to get you without having. I love the way you set this up.
But I see it the same way. It's like, how else can I help my students get the information in different formats so that they can really digest it, understand it, and use it for their next job, for their next business, for whatever they need to. So. And I do learn a lot from listening and watching you on how you post on LinkedIn, listening to your podcasts, your website, all of the stuff. So Thanks. What is next for you?
Oh, left foot, right foot, left foot, right. There's no ending. I think that I found a great stride. I have a podcast.com verified on Google Publishing.
Yay,
So
amazing.
that's now starting to make a bigger impact for the podcasters that I feature. So we'd love to feature you as a featured podcaster and get that out there to the Google verse and make sure that like the data spiders understand that you exist and you're out there and they know where to find you. More collaborating on podcasts for sure. More maybe I'd love to figure out some new ways to work in podcasting, more scripted. Find unique ways to collaborate. And I'm really leaning into the evergreen part of content. What you mentioned with your team was awesome because those support the episode immediately, and you need that to be shareable and to get people to watch it. Maybe your team's going to hate me for this. Permission to throw in a couple of extra deliverables. Don't throw out Giphy, and Tenor. So Giphy and Tenor are the two platforms that push stickers and GIFs to, so Tenor does it to Twitter and to LinkedIn, Microsoft based, and then Giphy to Instagram and TikTok. And so on Giphy, you have clips, GIFs, and stickers. Clips have audio. So if you're clipping short form content for social media, clip something shorter as a clip, and then it's something that people can use as creative currency the same way that they can with stickers or even just GIFs. And that's just one way, an evergreen way to maybe be attached to a certain word or a movement or a person, an artist or something like that, a platform. And set yourself up to inspire people to use you to be part of the alchemy of whatever their desired outcome is. And by being in Giphy and by being in Tenor, it allows them to not just like carry your ethos, but like use your likeness, use your actual structure to communicate. And for me, it's all about creative communication. Podcast, it's all about learning how to creatively communicate and creatively implement as well to a lot of people who don't understand what it takes to be a creative for as long as I have been a creative, and to have output that's consistent in quality and so that we're not talking about legacy in the last final 10 years of your life. We're talking about legacy now. Because this is where it starts. Anyone getting on this digital path, and it doesn't go away. So you might as well start now.
Oh, okay. So I'm already seeing, I'm going to have you back for part 2, part 3, part 4, part 4.
I love it.
Part 5.
Sign me up. Give me the residency.
More to unpack.
I got the Celine Dion residency. I want that.
Love it. Vinny, thank you so much for being on today. You've shared a lot of stuff. I was taking notes of thinking, okay, I'm like, I need to do this. I need to do that. I'm really looking forward to meeting you in person soon when you're out in LA, so that you can come speak to my class and I can take you to lunch or dinner or whatever. And, pick your brain and figure out how we can work together even more. So do you have a favorite quote?
We may not have it all together, but together we have it all.
Oh, I love that.
That's true. It's really.
I feel that. I'm feeling that deeply.
I needed to believe that when I was in high school, and that was like my yearbook quote. I needed to believe it. I didn't quite believe it then. I'm glad that I stuck with that.
Aspirational for you. Yeah.
It's you. It's us that has made me, and I love that about us.
Yeah. And I'm going to obviously link to your socials and your podcast and everything else in our show notes, but what is the easiest place? What's your main hub for people to find you and download some of the content and freebies that you have?
Yeah, VPE.tv, 5 letters, VPE.tv. If you love podcasts, go to ihaveapodcast.com and say hi to me on LinkedIn. Don't use like an email. Like find some quote, #LinkedVin is my personal hashtag on LinkedIn. Okay. Connect with me. That's a great way to say hi. Say hi and let's start there.
Awesome. Thank you very, very much for this amazing conversation. I love your energy. Everything that you do, really, your passion just shines through. So,
thanks.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. Thank you.
No, it's. I mean, this is the best kind of conversation. I love it when it's just genuine, and I don't want to stop talking to you. I know we both probably have other meetings to get to, but to our audience, thank you for coming back for another episode with an amazing guest on Your Brand Amplified. This episode with Vinny will be out soon, and many, many more that are going to follow up this episode. So keep looking for those after you listen to this one. And I'll be back again soon with another great guest. Want more? Check out amplifywithanika.com or follow me on socials at amplifywithanika.
You've been listening to I Have a Podcast with Vinnie Potestivo. If you like what you heard and you want to hear more, please find us at ihaveapodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks a lot for listening, and we'll see you next week.